This is episode 41 of the After Gambling podcast. In this episode, Steve came on the show to share his story, and it's one that you won't want to miss. Hey there, and welcome to the After Gambling podcast. My name is Jamie. I am a compulsive gambler, and I'm also the host of this show. The last time I gambled was July 15th of 2010. Now, as I've been promising, I've been wanting to do a bunch of interviews, and this is the first of hopefully many coming up in this next 10 episodes. And this one, I think you're really going to enjoy. And for a little backstory, Steve and I have exchanged a lot of messages on Twitter. It's a place that I've enjoyed kind of following his progress. And like I said, we've kind of corresponded on Twitter. But he reached out to me, and we wanted to do something on a very special day for Steve. And I just am very honored and glad that we were able to make it happen, that we could kind of connect and have a chat on, like I say, what was a very special day for Steve. So I think you're really going to enjoy this one. And most importantly, there are so many great takeaways that you can take and use in your own recovery. And so without further ado, here's the chat that I had with Steve. All right, so today I am joined by Steve. Steve, glad to have you on the show.
Thanks, Jamie. Nice to be here.
And Steve reached out to me on Twitter. We've kind of connected in the past, but reached out to me, and today is a very special day in Steve's life. And so as we're recording this, it will go live tomorrow. But Steve, tell everybody what today is.
Yep, so today is the 18th of October 2018, and that's 4 years since the last time I gambled. So yeah, a bit of a milestone for me. So really appreciate you having me on the podcast, Jamie. It's nice to hook up with you.
Oh, absolutely. And what better way to celebrate 4 years than kind of coming on and sharing your story? I know you said you have some other big plans. You can let everybody know what your other big plans are for today.
Well, I wouldn't say big plans, but my wife gave me a bit of money this morning as a bit of a reward to go and do a bit of shopping. So I've been refilling my wardrobe a bit this morning, and then looking forward to going out tonight with my best friend and also one of my best friends from GA, just for a few drinks, just to celebrate this day, really. So yeah, it's sort of bittersweet, really. Obviously sweet that I've got to 4 years and the things I've done in those 4 years and how much your life can change, but obviously remembering back to sort of this day 4 years ago where I got found out about my gambling, which obviously I'll go into a bit more detail later. So yeah, I'm trying to focus on the positives today because it is a good day, but obviously never forget the stuff we've done as well in the past.
It is. It's a balance, and I know I've struggled with this at times. Is kind of the celebrating the path we're on now, but also kind of accepting or dealing with the past, the just problems that we created for ourselves in the past. So it is bittersweet, but I think the further we go, and you're obviously seeing this, the more sweet it becomes. So I guess let's just start off. I always like to ask, just kind of what were some of your first memories of gambling? Because I know as kids or teens, it tends to be when people start to pick it up. So what were just your earliest memories of gambling?
Yeah, I think I've got some early memories of gambling, obviously. And on holiday to the seaside in sunny England, a lot of amusement arcades with slot machines in. So obviously used to go in there with my family and have a few bets on the slots and things like that. But like I said, those are sort of the earliest memories I can remember. And then I can also horse racing. Probably the first bet upon was on horse racing. As a child, used to be a big race in the UK called the Grand National. I can remember betting on that, and we all used to pick a horse out of the paper and have a bet on it. And sometimes I'd have a bit of a win, but I was only putting very low amounts on, so I wasn't winning big money. But I think like in a lot of compulsive gamblers, the early memories of gambling are usually good and fun, and I think that's sort of when you get a bit older and you get a bit of money in your pocket, you just think you can recreate that with larger amounts. And obviously that didn't quite work out for me, but yeah, definitely I can remember gambling as a child, and as I got into my teens, started betting with my friends on the football at the Wii cards and things like that at school for a bit of money. So definitely gambling was around me when I was a child, and then obviously developed as I got older.
Yeah, and so I guess walk us through some of that development. You mentioned kind of possibly having some wins along the way. Was that something that kind of stuck in your mind? And I always say, like, nobody sets out. I didn't set out to become a compulsive gambler, but obviously over time it happened. So if you could kind of walk us through some of the progressions or things that you look back on now and see, okay, this is how I went from just kind of gambling as a child to then having a problem with gambling.
Yeah, I think a major sort of progression in my gambling story is I went to university to study for 3 years, and obviously on a tight budget, but obviously still found a bit of money for gambling, whether it was again on the slots on a night out or in the bookmakers. But in my final year at university, that was in about year 2000, it's when sort of internet gambling or online gambling started up really. So I sort of signed up to an online gambling site. And again, one of my friends came round and we put a few bets on. Sort of went out for the night, came back and had, £50 in my account, which was not a lot at the time, but for a student, it was quite a few good nights out, sort of thing. So it's sort of, I think something clicked there to say this is a way of making a bit of money and sort of helping me clear some of my student debt. So, like I say, sort of at that time, you started getting all the sort of free bet offers on the online site. So it was sort of download so much money and get so much free. And again, that sort of hooked me in a bit, being a poor student. I thought it was sort of easy money, it's free money, so it can't do any harm. But I think when I finished university and then obviously got a job, I had more access to money, so I thought I could increase my stakes slightly. But I think, I think there were some early wins. I think that helped definitely. But over time, obviously the stakes grew bigger. I just began to get into more and more debt. So you're then beginning to chase the losses and just try and claw back anything you can. One big win, you'll clear your debts and you'll stop gambling. But that never happened for me, unfortunately. But it was definitely the tipping point, I think, when I started online gambling, because I never really had a problem going into bookmakers. I wouldn't spend a lot of money in there, just a couple of pounds or something like that. But online, it was invisible money. You couldn't really see it. It was just all sort of tokens, really, and started getting into debts on credit cards and things like that. You can soon get into a big mess because it's just instant. And yeah, it developed over probably 6 to 12 months. And I think I crossed that invisible line from being a normal gambler into a compulsive gambler. And the problem was I couldn't see any way out of it, like many of us do. So yeah, that's definitely, I saw the progression. I couldn't say exactly when I turned into a compulsive gambler, but I could put probably a 3 to 6 month window on it.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you say with the online and talking about how it seems like credits. It doesn't seem like real money, kind of play money. And I definitely can relate to that.
Yeah, and I think even when you win online, you can reverse the withdrawal. So, like many people have probably done, you win a decent amount in your account, but you get greedy, so you withdraw the amount, and then you just gamble with that and lose it and lose more, sort of thing. So I got into that spiral where I was putting bets on to try and win that big win. But even when I won, I wanted to win more, and it was a bit of a no-win situation. So as soon as I put that first bet on, I had no control. I couldn't stop.
Yeah, and with the reversal of withdrawals, that's something I know. I could buy a very nice car or possibly even a house with the money that I canceled out of withdrawals. And I think online it's such a hassle almost to get your money out, even if you are up, that then, they kind of have you. Once the money's in there, for us that can't stop gambling, the money doesn't get out soon enough for us to make kind of a wise decision. I think that just kind of continues the cycle.
I think a good example that sticks out for me, Jamie, is when I was just gambling in my early years, I'd probably just gamble on football and probably horses. I think when I got introduced to online gambling, it just opens up a new world of betting 24/7. So I started getting onto the online casinos, playing roulette, blackjack, poker, and there's just something to bet on, like I say, 24/7. So, many late nights, up playing poker or blackjack or something like that, and you could lose hundreds or even £1,000, and then you get up the next day and do the same thing all over again. So I think one gambling episode that sticks out is I was playing online poker, and I only used to go on the really sort of low stake tables because I wasn't really very good, really. But I think I must have downloaded, say, £100 and started playing, and very quickly I'd got down to my last sort of £5. And on the last sort of game I had, I managed to win. And then I went on a sort of good winning spree. Probably got up to about £200. So then I thought, well, I could take this £200 and I could either sort of walk away and go and buy something nice, or I could go on some of the bigger stake tables and try and win a bit more. So I did that. Went on the sort of £5, £10 a stake table. Managed to get over £1,000. Again, a normal person would probably walked away and gone and bought something nice or booked a nice holiday or something like that. But again, I thought, well, if I've turned this £5 into over £1,000, then if I went on a bigger table, I could turn £1,000 into £10,000 or £20,000. So again, I went on a higher stake table, and I'm probably playing with sort of professional poker players now. And within the space of about 5 minutes, I think I'd lost it all. And yeah, that's just sort of a typical day in a compulsive gambler. I think it's you're absolutely gutted. You've gone from feeling so high and elated that you've won the money, then you just feel like a complete mug that you've lost it all, and I'm never going to do this again. I want to stop, etc. But the next day, the gambling addiction tells you to try again. You could be lucky today. So yeah, it's a funny addiction. It's definitely progressive, but thankfully now I'm sort of 4 years clear. But obviously, there's a bit more to the story than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess one question on that, did you find yourself, I think you mentioned, playing games that you wouldn't go into a casino even to play, or at stakes you wouldn't play live? Was it because it was different online?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I've only ever been to a proper casino once. So I've not really played on things like roulette or poker or things like that. So definitely online did open up different avenues of gambling for me. And obviously the comfort of being in your own house, you can just do it whenever you want for how long as you want. It's so easy to do. It's so accessible. So yeah, definitely opened up different opportunities that I probably wouldn't have done if I'd just been a normal gambler.
Yeah, and I guess one thing I would like, if you could, walk us through. You kind of walked us through kind of the day in the life a little bit on the plane and the rise and the fall of the money. What were some of the other things, the thoughts that were going through your heads, or the problems that over time gambling was creating in your life that you were dealing with on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, just to jump in there, I mean, I'm sort of going back sort of 15 years here. So I think the first time when I realised I had a problem with gambling was probably 2003. So I was sort of 22, 23 at the time, just finished university, started work, had a partner. Obviously, she didn't know anything about my gambling. She probably knew I'd like to gamble a little bit because we used to go to the races together or to the greyhounds and stuff like that. But she didn't know the extent to what I was gambling behind closed doors, shall we say. Nobody did really, not my family. I've got a brother, mother and father. They didn't know how much I was gambling. My best friend or my friends, they didn't know how much I was gambling. So it's a very secretive, hidden addiction. And so I suppose the thoughts I was having was, can I stop gambling? Dare I tell anybody about the problem, or do I just carry on and, like I say, try and win this big win? Because all I saw it as was a financial problem. If I could have a big win and pay my debts off, then I wouldn't have a problem anymore. But obviously, as I've learned, gambling addiction is much more than a financial problem. So, like I say, some of the thoughts I was having was I just couldn't see a way out of paying the debts off. That was one thought. And obviously with those sort of thoughts, it's sort of, well, shall I just end it? Shall I just, commit suicide and then the debts will be gone, sort of thing? Those thoughts came, a few times as I was driving home from work. Shall I just pull over and, crash the car and try and end it sort of thing. So, yeah, really, really negative thoughts. And, gambling can take you to some really dark places. And as a sort of 23-year-old thinking about committing suicide, it would have been obviously a big loss. Obviously, now I'm 38, and if I think of the things I've done in the last 15 years, it's frightening that I could have just ended it back then. So, I'm thankful that I did find recovery, although I'm on my second attempt now, but I am glad that sort of 15 years ago I was able to ask for help and go and find help. So, yeah, it's some really dark places you can go to. Luckily, I've not been to all of them, but I know if I went back gambling, I could end up in prison, or, like I say, at the end of the day, I could commit suicide and end up being dead. So, some very dark places I don't want to go to, and that's what helps me in my recovery, and obviously try and focus on the positive things going forward.
Yeah, and so I guess what happened 4 years ago? Because as you mentioned, you kind of had sounds like you sought out help about 15 years ago and maybe got into a better place. And I think this is important because so many people, myself, I didn't quit for good on the first time. We kind of learn as we go and we grow along the way. But I think it's important, I guess I'd love to hear kind of what that story is leading up to then what happened 4 years ago that obviously has you here celebrating today.
Yeah, so back in 2003, like I say, I'd got to the stage where my partner at the time, we was looking to buy a house together, and she wanted to go into the bank and sit down and talk about mortgages and buying a house, etc. And obviously I was petrified that I'd have to, all my debts and credit cards and loans, etc., would be exposed. So I just kept putting her off for months and months and months. But sort of eventually she sort of pinned me down and said, look, we're going this weekend to go and see the mortgage advisor. So, so then I just panicked sort of thing that, I needed to tell her about all my debts really and all my gambling. So, like I said, I think it was February 2003. I came out with it. I told her everything. Obviously, it was a massive surprise and a massive shock to her, but luckily she decided to stick with me and support me, which was, really big for me at the time. But I decided I needed help because I tried to stop gambling on my own before, but, a couple of weeks or a month maybe, then I'd go back to it. So I decided I need some help. And I found the local Gamblers Anonymous meetings in Nottingham, Robin Hood country, where I'm from. So I decided to try those. And like I say, as soon as I walked into the first meeting, it was like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders because there was other people who'd done things like me, and I got some great advice in there from some of the older members. And yeah, I started going to GA meetings every week, and it really did work for me, and my life turned around really quickly. I was able to start paying my debts off because I got 100% pay rise at work because I wasn't gambling anymore. So yeah, I think I got into the routine of going to GA, and my partner saw obviously I was changing and for the better. So we ended up getting married, which was a fantastic day, and then started a family. By this stage, I think I'd probably done 5 years at GA and not had a bet. Things were going brilliant, put loads of good barriers in place, and my life was fantastic. But for whatever reason, I think when I had my daughter in 2008, my sort of priorities changed a little, and sort of GA fell down the priority list, which may have been the right thing to do. It might not have been the right thing to do, but I definitely got complacent and stopped going to the meetings. And as I stopped going to the meetings, I wasn't getting that constant reminder about, the dark places gambling could take you to. And I wasn't getting my weekly medicine. So I can't say exactly when it was, but, I started doing the wrong things again. I started getting too close to gambling. Like I say, I got complacent. Maybe I thought I was cured. I don't know. But definitely sort of a few years after, I started doing the wrong things and having the odd bet here and there, just a little bet, it wouldn't hurt. Nobody needed to know about it. But it got to the stage in 2014 where I probably sort of got into a bit of a repetitive cycle again with gambling, because I'd found a couple of ways to gamble without my wife knowing about it. Because obviously we had a joint account, so anything I spent out of there, she'd see it straight away. So I'd sort of developed a couple of ways to sort of gamble without her finding out. And I went on a bit of a gambling binge, really, probably 6 months, where I was sort of gambling every day, won a bit, lost a bit. But again, it got to the stage where, why was I gambling? Because even if I had a big win, on to my wife, said, "Oh, look, I've just won £10,000, let's go on holiday," because I shouldn't have been gambling. So usually when I did win the money, I just tried to lose it again, because there was no point having it. So like I said, it was a bit of a repetitive cycle where I was gambling. If I won, I just wanted to lose the money. And if I lost, I wanted to try and chase the money back. So that went on for about 6 months. And, I got 2 children by this stage. And I was sneaking around, gambling on my phone at home and stuff like that. And, not spending the quality time with my family that I should have been doing. So it was, like I say, it was 18th of October 2014 where my wife suddenly, I think she was getting suspicious, because I was leaving a few things open, probably to try and get found out. And she asked me if she could check the credit card bill that I managed, sort of thing. And I tried to fob her off, like I say, saying, "Oh, what do you want to check that for? There's nothing on there." But she probably knew that I was a compulsive gambler, and she asked to check the online statement. And then obviously she saw all the gambling transactions on there. Luckily for me, I don't think it wasn't a financial problem this time, because I wasn't thousands of pounds in debt, but obviously it was all the lies I'd been telling again, and all the trust that I'd built up over those years of coming to GA, that was back to square one again. So it was a very difficult time for me, and I didn't really know if I'd still have a family, basically, because she'd given me a second chance. Was she going to give me a third chance? So yeah, it was a difficult few weeks and months, really, just to try and get my head around what I'd done and accept that I was a compulsive gambler again, and that I wasn't cured, and I was going to be a compulsive gambler till the day I die. So lucky for me, again, my wife gave me a third chance, and it's probably my final chance, to be fair. But we both agreed that I needed to go back to Gamblers Anonymous, because it had worked before, and like I said, just stopped going to the meetings. So went back to the meetings, and again, it's worked for me. I've had to do a few things differently this time, but it's the meetings that make the recovery, and the more you put into the meetings, the more you get out of them. But I've got to obviously thank my wife for her support over the last 4 years, but obviously the people at GA and my friends who have been more honest with this time around, because when I first went to Gamblers Anonymous, I didn't tell any of my friends, not even my best friend. But I've told a few more people this time around, and that's been great to have their support as well. And obviously when I get to milestones like 4 years, it's great to go out and celebrate with them. So yeah, that's a bit more of my story, and it's an interesting one, like I say, for people who go to GA, because we see so many people who come for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and they're doing really well, and then they just stop coming. And hopefully by sharing my story, it's you do have to keep coming to GA for the rest of your life, because it don't matter where you've been off a week, a year, 10 years, 30 years. If you stop going to the meetings and stop doing the right things, you'll go back gambling, because, like I say, it's a very powerful addiction, and we're never cured.
No, I can tell you from personal experience that I'm so glad that you did share that, because I know at my meeting, there's an individual there that they have a similar story. They had almost 10 years clean, and then went back to gambling for about 20 to 30 years, and now are back. They actually just celebrated 9 years again. And I always tell them their story is one of the most powerful that I need to hear on a week-to-week basis, because it's that reminder that I'm doing the right thing, and I don't have to go find out for myself what will happen if I stop going to meetings. I can just listen to their story. And obviously now I add your story to it. So thank you very much for that. And it's just so I appreciate you sharing, because I think it shows the internal struggle we all feel, right? Because we're battling those thoughts, and like the hiding, the lying, all that stuff. And I thought it was interesting when you said you were almost like kind of hoping to get caught.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest fear as well. I like because I've been off 4 years. I think if this had been my first time around, I probably thought, yeah, I'm okay now. I've done 4 years, but because I've gone for a number of years before and still gone back to gambling, I'm always sort of cautious that the addiction's always there. It's always on the shoulder, lurking to strike again. So I just keep doing one day at a time. That's all I can do. And it's a mental illness today. It's an emotional illness, and it's very difficult when you have things going on in your life, traumas or certain triggers. It's difficult to keep it all together sometimes. So that's why I make sure I get to at least one GA meeting a week, sometimes two, because that really helps me. And like I say, that it's like my medicine. So definitely, I'm going to keep going, but it's one day at a time. At the end of the day, that's all we can say.
Absolutely. And obviously, I'm a huge fan of GA. It's been probably the thing that's helped me most in recovery, and it's kind of led me to so many other places. But are there other places you check in? And I already know, I know you're pretty active on Twitter. Do you use that as an outlet, or what other places do you check in or use in your recovery, kind of in between meetings?
Yeah, so I think Twitter's been a big one for me this time around because I never had that in the past. So like people with gambling problems and recovering compulsive gamblers on Twitter, and there's a good support network on there which I do use, and I've met quite a few people through there. Also, I think, like I say, GA meetings sort of two hours a week, but we have a phone list and we have WhatsApp groups and things like that. Keeping in touch with a lot of people in between meetings, and if people are struggling, trying to help them out. And I think that's another good thing, to keep in contact with compulsive gamblers. A big thing for me as well is started doing a lot of running just to try and fill some of my time, but obviously getting healthier as well. So the running I've been doing is really helping my sort of physical and mental health, and I get a good buzz out when I've been for a good run, and that helps me definitely. I've actually just managed to get into the London Marathon for next year, so that's something I'm sort of focusing on over the next sort of 6 months. So, biggest marathon in the world. Well, for me anyway, you could argue that New York or Boston or Chicago is bigger, but for me, the London Marathon is the best one in the world. So, yeah, that is definitely a challenge that I've set myself. But now I'm in recovery, I like to set myself these little challenges because it just keeps my mind active and it keeps me focused on something, and hopefully keeps those thoughts of gambling out of my mind. So, yeah, running's a big thing for me. It really does fill my time, and I get a lot from it. Don't think I'll ever replace the buzz of gambling. I've heard a lot of people say that, but I'm happy just doing what I'm doing now. Running, got a good job, spending time with family. Watching the kids grow up. It's a fantastic life, and I wouldn't swap it for the world. So, yeah, I feel very fortunate today, and very, very happy where I am in my life, and it's all from stopping gambling, really, because gambling only caused me misery, really. So, yeah, it's really, really good that we can come on here and share our story, sort of thing. So, really glad that you let me come on, Jamie. And I feel humbled to be a part of this podcast because I've listened to it for several months now, and it's been a big help to me. So it's good that I can come on here and share my story and hopefully help other people.
No, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm excited for you for the London Marathon. That just sounds incredible. I've never been to London. That's one of the things I want to get over and visit a lot of places. I'm a golfer, so that's the other part. I want to come over and play a lot of golf courses. But no, I think it's an incredible thing, like you say, with health and finding something else. And like you said, I think a lot of people are always trying to replace gambling and replace that high of gambling. And I guess now I tell people, look, I don't get that high. I haven't found anything. Competitive golf was a similar high, but not quite as high. But the thing I also don't have anymore is that incredible low. And so, I mean, living that life a little bit more in the middle, for me, it's worth it. You give up those extremes, and life just becomes so much easier.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I said, I think serenity, it's great to have serenity in your life and just have that peace of mind and self-respect, really. That's worth more than any money or any sort of win at gambling. So, yeah, I'm quite content with where I am at the minute and who I am. And like I say, I just take things one day at a time and get to my meetings and try and help other people now and give something back to GA. So yeah, it's going well at the minute, but hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be able to come back on and in a year's time and say I've got to 5 years. But I don't want to preempt anything. But hopefully, like I say, if I keep doing the right things, talking to people, connecting with other people, and hopefully one day at a time, I'll keep going the way I'm going.
Absolutely, and I look forward to having that chat. Let's wrap this one up with just kind of your parting advice. Somebody that's listening, they're on day 0 or day 1 or a week in, a month in, whatever it is. What's a little bit of advice they can kind of take and use in their kind of day-to-day life right now?
Yeah, I think the key thing is to accept you've got a problem. Accept that gambling's got you beat. Speak to somebody about it. Tell somebody. Don't keep it a secret. Don't keep it hidden. You need to, like I say, tell somebody, confide in somebody. Admit you've got a problem, because that's obviously the first step to recovery. Admitting we're powerless over gambling. Obviously, my advice would be, try and go to your local Gamblers Anonymous meeting. But there are other avenues of help out there. GA's work for me, so I will try and promote it. But there are other things you can go and seek help with if you don't fancy a GA meeting. Yeah, don't be afraid to speak up if you've got a problem. But definitely try and get some help, because we can't beat this addiction alone. I think you got to get some help to try and beat it, but it is possible. It's not easy, and there's bumps along the road of recovery, but it can be done. But yeah, just take it one day at a time, because we can never say we'll never ever gamble again for the rest of our lives. We just have to keep taking it one day at a time. But like I say, if people are struggling, or if they want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at gambling_free. My name's Steve. I'm a compulsive gambler. Last bet 4 years ago. And thanks for having me, Jamie.
Incredible stuff. It's extremely powerful. Thank you for coming on. You've helped me, and I know you are going to help so many others that listen to this. So thanks again. And I look forward to chatting again. We don't even have to wait a year. Anytime you want to come on and chat, if there's a topic, I look forward to having another chat with you in the future. And good luck with your training. And look forward to seeing your results of the London Marathon next year.
Yep, you'll see it on Twitter. Have a fantastic day, mate. Cheers.
Cheers. I hope you enjoyed that and got as much out of it as I did, because I really, really got a lot out of hearing Steve share his story. It was very, very powerful, and there are so many takeaways and so many things that I could relate to, and I'm sure you can as well. Now, if you want, please reach out to Steve on Twitter. I will put his handle on the show notes, so you can reach out to him, tell him thanks for coming on, let him know what you enjoyed most. It's really nice for him to take time out to come share with every one of us. So let's thank him for coming on the show. And then finally, you know what I'm going to say? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not an attorney. I'm not a therapist. So please listen to the advice Steve provided to us. Reach out for help. Go to those professionals. Get the help that you need so you can begin your recovery with the help of professionals. And then finally, music for the show, as always, is Something Elated by Broke for Free and is licensed under the Creative Commons license. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.